My son-in-law drugged my drink to get my signature for my house. A waiter switched the glasses. They say family fires don't start with flames, they start with brunch. For 30 years I ran toward alarms, not from them. Now, retired, widowed, and running a small safety supply business, I thought the only smoke left in my life came from the warehouse heater. Then my daughter called. "Let's do brunch, Dad." Casual. That word should have been the warning. I was 5 minutes early. Chase, my son-in-law, was already there. Rolex catching the light, mimosa in hand. "Walt," he said like greeting an employee. "You still doing that firefighter cosplay store?" He laughed alone. "We're modern now. Paperless. Efficient. We just need a few signatures. Streamline things." He slid a leather folder toward me, edges too sharp, a notary seal faint beneath the flap. I looked up. "Streamline or strip?" He smiled. "Don't be dramatic, old man. The world changes. You can't hold the hose forever." Lily whispered, "Just sign, Dad." I guess 99% of you will hear this, sigh, and scroll past, not clicking like or subscribe, even if it only takes a second. What time is it for you, and where are you listening? They say every family story starts with something small, a word, a look, a gesture too casual to notice. Mine started with brunch. I was 5 minutes early. Old habits die hard. When you've spent 30 years answering alarms, you start to think, punctuality is a kind of prayer. The Lexus idled beneath a row of decorative maples at Summit Plaza, their leaves too perfect to be real. My Omega ticked steady on my wrist while the Pike Place in the cup holder went from warm to room temperature. The Wall Street Journal sat folded on the passenger seat, mortgage rates circled, because I still like to know how the world burned its money. Summit Cafe and Bar tried too hard to look effortless Edison bulbs. Fake brick, succulents so symmetrical they felt like props. The chalkboard behind the counter said, "Truffle omelets $27." The air smelled like lemon polish and quiet judgment. Lily waved from a corner booth, her smile bright but a little too rehearsed. Chase stood as I approached. That smooth, empty politeness some men wear like a watch. He already had a mimosa in hand. "Walt," he said, nodding as if I were a contractor he'd underpaid. "You still doing the hose and helmet thing?" I took a seat. "Still running Hale Safety Supply, if that's what you mean." He grinned, teeth too white. "Right, the firefighter cosplay store, that's what I call it." He laughed at his own joke, a low, satisfied sound that didn't invite anyone else in. "It's quaint, but Lily and I are modern, paperless, efficient." He swirled his mimosa, Rolex catching the light like it was waiting for applause. I could feel my daughter tense beside him. She stirred her water with a straw, eyes fixed on the condensation running down the glass. "I'm guessing this is about something," I said finally. Chase smiled the way salesmen do before a pitch. "Got some bank stuff, just a few signatures to streamline things. Taxes, refinancing, all that adulting." He slid a thin leather folder across the table, its edges sharp, too intentional. The Dior tote beside him gave off that new leather smell that still faintly reminded me of fire gear, the kind of detail that made my chest tighten without reason. "Streamline," I repeated, tapping my watch. "Or strip?" He chuckled. "Don't be dramatic. It's just efficiency, Walt. The world's changing. You've got all this equity sitting around doing nothing. Let us help." I didn't answer. Instead, I reached for the coffee mug, let the warmth steady me, and caught it the faint circle pressed into the folder's corner, a notary seal. Through the leather, you could still see the impression. Below that, the Mont Blanc elastic loop, holding a pen too polished to belong to someone who worked with their hands. I've been in smoke so thick you couldn't see your own fingers. I've heard buildings creak right before they fell. You learn to read pressure, not words. And right there, between the folded napkins and the fake brick walls, I felt pressure. Lily whispered something I couldn't catch. Chase just smiled wider. "Dad," she said softly, "he's just trying to make things easier." Easier. That word. Always the doorway to something hard. I let the silence hang. My mind flickered back to a soot-choked hallway, a boy coughing, my hands guiding him toward daylight. Calm saves lives, that's what I learned then. So I stayed calm now. When the waiter dropped off the check, Chase reached for it. I got there first. "Let me," I said, sliding my card in before he could protest. He laughed again, a little too loud. "You'll thank me later." Maybe I would, maybe not. As the check presenter shut like a book, Chase's folder stayed open just enough for me to see the notary seal and decide I wouldn't blink first. There's a rhythm to my mornings that hasn't changed since the firehouse days. Coffee first. Lights on in the warehouse before sunrise. Check the inventory sheets before the radio starts spitting out bad news. Hail safety supply might be small, just a corrugated building off Route 19, but it's mine. Veterans stop in for gloves. Small-town fire chiefs swing by for replacement masks, and we still do business with handshakes. Some people call that old-fashioned. I call it a code. That afternoon, I finished restocking a shipment and watched a firefighter named Ramos drive off with his order, threw in a few extra pairs of liners on the house. Loyalty like that is worth more than any stock dividend Chase would brag about over brunch. I locked up, grabbed takeout, and headed home, looking forward to the kind of quiet that doesn't need conversation. When I opened the door, the smell hit first sugar and something expensive. Lily's Dior bag sat on the chair, and beside it a white box from that bakery she likes uptown. "Thought I'd bring dessert," she said brightly. Her tone was brittle around the edges. Chase followed a beat later, carrying a laptop bag that didn't fit with the casual visit vibe. "Hey, Walt," he said, voice all business casual charm. "We've got something quick to run by you, just housekeeping stuff." He laid out the papers like a magician about to do a card trick. "We're consolidating liens for a Scottsdale opportunity," he said smoothly, spreading the pages in a neat fan. "You sign here and here just to simplify things. Notary comes tomorrow. Easy." I picked up the top page. Durable power of attorney. Pre-filled. My name in neat black ink. My address. The little boxes checked for real property. I read aloud, like my late wife used to when she thought something smelled off. "Grant of authority, including real property transactions." Chase smiled as if I'd said something amusing. "You raised a hero, Lily, but heroes can be impractical." Lily flinched, eyes flicking between us. "Dad, it's just easier this way. We can handle the details for you." I looked around the dining room. The ceiling paint had a small crack I'd been meaning to fix. The old clock on the wall ticked just slightly off beat. Little things, ordinary things. But the room suddenly felt staged, like everything familiar was being used against me. I set the paper down, careful not to smudge it. "Scottsdale opportunity, huh? What's that? Some kind of real estate fund?" Chase straightened his cufflink. "You don't have to worry about the details. That's the whole point. We streamline." "Streamline or strip?" I asked quietly. His smile tightened. "You make it sound sinister. Maybe I've earned the right to ask." I reached for the next page, quitclaim deed, drafted but unsigned. My name again, the house address, transfer of interest. That was when I remembered the note Ruth left in the silverware drawer, years ago. "Paper loves quiet. Read it loud." So I did, out loud, every clause, every hereby and whereas. Lily's voice cracked mid-sentence. "Dad, please, it's just a formality." I looked at her, not angry, just clear. "Formality's how you lose a house, sweetheart." The silence between us stretched until the refrigerator clicked on. Chase's jaw tightened. "If you're going to make this difficult." I pulled my iPhone from my pocket and took 3 photos each page, time-stamped, clear enough to read the fine print. "I like keeping records," I said. "Old habit." He reached out as if to take the papers back. I slid them away. "You said the notary's coming tomorrow?" "Yes," he said. A flicker of something in his eyes, panic or irritation, I couldn't tell. "Good," I said. "I'll be ready." When I read the paragraph about real property transfers, if you've ever walked into a place that tries too hard to be relaxed, you know the kind of tension I mean. The copper and marble cafe glowed with the soft hum of money-imported beans, minimalist lighting, customers pretending they weren't checking their reflections in the glass. I parked the Lexus across the street, pulled up the Nest app on my iPhone out of habit, watched the empty driveway of my house for a few seconds, then stepped out. Years of command work make you check perimeters even when there's no fire. Chase was already there, waving from a corner table like he'd just closed a deal. His Cartier bracelet caught the light as he lifted a hand. Lily sat beside him, posture perfect, knuckles white around her phone. A folder sat between them, the same kind of sleek leather I'd seen before. "Morning, Walt," Chase said, sliding a second coffee toward me. "Try this decaf. Calms the nerves. You get a little jittery around paperwork. Maybe that's because I read it, I said, taking my seat. He smiled like I was a slow student. We've got the notary meeting us here. Quick signatures, then we're done. Paperless future, right? Steam hissed from behind the counter. I turned my head and froze for half a heartbeat. The barista was Tommy Kearns. Same sharp jaw, same scar under his left ear. I'd carried him out of a burning apartment 15 years ago, a kid barely old enough to drive. He recognized me immediately, eyes widening before he schooled his face back to neutral. I gave him a nod, the kind that said, "We'll talk later." "Tommy," I said casually, "how's your mom?" He blinked once. "Still loud? Still cooking too much?" His voice was steady, but his eyes flicked between me and Chase. Chase laughed like he owned the place. "Small world, huh? You firefighters are everywhere." He reached for the coffee cups just as Tommy set them down. There was a faint ring of spill near one, dark against the marble. Tommy wiped it with a towel, fast and smooth. In that motion, he rotated the cups left for right so cleanly no one else noticed. "Happens," he muttered, almost too quiet. I caught it, though. And so did he. Chase pushed the cup toward me. "Drink up, Walt. I swear it'll make this easier." I looked at the cup, looked at Tommy. He didn't move. His jaw flexed once. I didn't drink. Chase did. One impatient sip, then another. He launched into some speech about asset mobility and intergenerational stewardship, corporate air freshener for theft. 10 minutes later, his rhythm slipped. His words stretched. Lily's phone buzzed twice, unanswered. "You good?" I asked, voice flat. He blinked, confused. Yeah, I'm just lightheaded. Long morning." From the kitchen came the smell of burnt toast. Somewhere outside, a siren started up, far but growing. My hands were steady on the table, steady the way they used to be on the nozzle when flames clawed through drywall. The door opened. A woman with a briefcase hurried in, scanning the room. "Sorry, I'm late traffic." The mobile notary. Chase tried to stand, missed the edge of the table, and his Mont Blanc pen rolled from his hand. Lily's voice broke. "Chase?" I reached for my phone. "Calm first, then call. Always." 911, I said evenly. "Possible poisoning at Cafe Alder, corner of 5th and Main." The barista's towel froze mid-wipe. The notary's face went pale. When Chase's hand missed the Mont Blanc by an inch, I heard Ruth's voice in my head. "Calm first, then call." And I did. When you've spent most of your life running towards smoke, the trick after retirement is learning how to breathe when everything's calm. But that morning, the air in Cafe Alder wasn't calm. It was heavy with steamed milk and panic. The siren I'd heard in the distance finally arrived, lights washing the copper walls in red and blue. Chase was slumped over, his expensive watch catching the light every time the paramedics checked his pulse. The notary had vanished, like a ghost who never signed in. Lily was shaking, knuckles white around her phone. "He just got dizzy," she said to the officer, voice breaking. "He didn't mean—" She stopped when she saw my face. "I know," I said. "Let's just deal in facts." The EMTs worked fast. Oxygen, vitals, a stretcher. They asked if I was family. I said, "No, father-in-law. That's enough for now." Lily followed them into the ambulance, tears streaking her mascara. When the doors closed, I turned to the cafe manager, a woman about my age with nerves drawn tight. "I'll need a copy of the CCTV for the last hour," I said. She hesitated. "Sir, I'm not sure we can—" Before she could finish, Tommy stepped in from behind the counter. "It's okay. This is Captain Hargrove. He saved me when I was 17. He knows what he's doing." Something changed in her posture. Respect, maybe, or relief at being told what to do. She nodded once. "Come with me." In the back room, the smell of espresso and disinfectant mixed like burnt toast and hospital soap. The manager pulled up the footage. The time-stamped file showed Chase sliding something into the coffee cup quick, subtle, but there. She exhaled through her nose. "Jesus!" I didn't respond. Just said, "Export the clip. Keep the original on your system. 2 copies, different drives." She did, quietly. I watched her print the receipt log for the morning. Tommy labeled the cups with a Sharpie, sealed them in plastic pastry bags. His hands shook. "Chain of custody, right?" "Right," I said, taking one bag. "Never touch the rim." When When the police officer approached, he looked young enough to be my grandson. "Sir, do you want to press charges?" I stared at him for a beat. "I want the truth to stand, that's all." Lily's voice floated back from the doorway. "Dad, please, not like this." I kept my tone even. "Like this, exactly." He wrote down my statement while his body cam blinked red. "So you're saying you didn't drink from the cup?" "Didn't touch it. I was watching." Any reason you thought your son-in-law might, do this?" I looked past him, toward the cooling coffee machine, where one drip formed, fell, and spread into a small, perfect heart on the counter. "You don't spend your life running into burning rooms without learning to notice who locks the doors behind you." He nodded, scribbling notes. I gave him my phone number, then opened my iPhone and began typing an email to myself, subject line, timeline. Heure, tea, arrived at café. 8:22. Cups served. 8:25. Cup rotation. 8:36. Onset of symptoms. 8:41. 911 call. 8:52. Ambulance départure. I attached 2 photos. The sealed cup bags and the manager's receipt log. Facts, not opinions. Facts hold up better under heat. When it was done, I sat alone at the corner table, the noise fading back to clinks and whispers. The manager turned the closed sign on the door. I watched her lock it, the key trembling slightly in her hand. Outside, the late sun spilled over the marble counter, gold and unforgiving. I stood, slid the evidence bag into my jacket pocket, and took one long, even breath. With the evidence sealed and the timeline sent, I stepped into the late sun and realized the next move wasn't shouting, it was subtraction. There's a special kind of silence that comes after chaos, the kind you can actually work in. That morning, I brewed my coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened my notebook. No speeches, no vengeance plan pinned to the wall, just a checklist. Because when you've led men through burning buildings, you learn that order is the only antidote to panic. First item, Bank of America. I called the fraud line, gave my account number, and said the words I'd repeated in my head all night. Flag any power of attorney requests. No exceptions. No remote authorizations. Voice confirmation only. The rep's tone shifted halfway through my explanation. Firm became respectful. Understood, Captain Hargrove. You'll receive written verification within 24 hours. Second item, vendors. I called Hale Safety Supply's major clients, the small-town firehouses and veteran centers that had kept me in business long after I retired. Pause all third-party pickups, I said. No invoices processed without my signature, even if someone shows up with my daughter's last name. Each one answered the same way. Got it, Walt. We trust you. Loyalty, like steel, is forged under heat. By 10, I was in Midtown, 20 floors above the city, sitting across from my attorney, Margot Peña. Her office smelled like paper and resolve. Sirens echoed faintly from the street below, a reminder that the world keeps burning somewhere, even on your quiet days. She was already scrolling through my email thread when I sat down. We're doing this quiet, she said, tapping the MacBook Air. I nodded. No posts, no speeches, just paperwork. Oh, she leaned back, studying me. Then we'll start with the trust. Narrow amendment, conditional clauses. If anyone tries to exercise authority under a fraudulent POA, the asset auto-locks. You'll get alerts from both the bank and the title office. Her hands moved fast, typing, clicking through tabs. The screen glowed faintly against the glass behind her. Next, she said, the lake property. We'll add survivorship language and install a new ring system. You'll want camera eyes on both doors. Tahoe isn't exactly private this time of year. She pushed a document toward me. Initial here. The Mont Blanc felt heavy in my hand. Ruth had given it to me when I opened the shop 20 years ago, back when signatures meant something. The ink bit softly into the paper, final, deliberate. I thought about the old firehouse saying, check your exit before you enter. That's what this was. Checking exits. When I got back home, I opened the laptop, created a spreadsheet titled Trust Shield Protocol, and started listing every account, property, and recurring draft. Column by column, I traced my name through the world until every pathway ended where I wanted it to. The Tahoe cabin came next. I drove up that weekend with a new set of locks and a Ring camera. The air up there always smelled clean, like pine and memory. I stood on the porch, winter light sliding across the frozen lake, and screwed the camera into the frame myself. No contractors, no middlemen. I wanted to see who came to my door, not read about it later. That night, back home, CNN murmured low on mute while the printer hummed beside me, spitting out the new trustee page. My Omega ticked in rhythm with the machine. One by one, the pages slid into the out tray, still warm from the ink. By the time the printer spat out the new trustee page, my world sat on my side of the table again, and that meant I could finally face the part that would hurt. You never expect the knife to come with applause. Summit Ridge Country Club glowed like it was auditioning for a brochure, white tablecloths, string lights woven through fake ivy, champagne flutes lined like soldiers. A banner read First Responders Scholarship Gala. Ruth's photo sat beside a fire boot filled with carnations, her handwriting, "Always come home," framed beneath it. I straightened my navy suit, the Omega on my wrist ticking soft and steady. Habit made me scan exits, corners, faces. You can take the man out of the firehouse, but not the firehouse out of the man. Lily was radiant and nervous. Her Dior clutch matched the stage lights, her hand trembling around the mic until she found her balance. Chase stood a few feet behind her, crisp tuxedo, that perfect jawline that always looked ready for a camera. "My father," she began, voice soft, "is a hero." She paused, and people smiled, clapped politely. "He's also alone. Since Mom passed, it's been hard. Finances, health decisions. Life doesn't come with a manual." A ripple moved through the tables. My chest went cold. She continued, her tone smoothing out. "That's why I'm so grateful for Chase. He's been helping Dad organize things, retirement accounts, refinancing options, making sure he's protected." I heard the words, but what I felt was the collective turn of a room, the subtle lean, the way polite people begin to believe they know your story. Across the table, Mrs. Whitaker, who'd sent casseroles after Ruth's funeral, tilted her head with sympathy. The club treasurer murmured something about financial guardianship. Chase smiled like a man tasting victory. He gave a small shrug when our eyes met, the kind you'd give after a winning hand. My throat felt dry, but I stayed still. The hero of a smaller fire, trapped in a bigger one. When the applause came, it was gentle. It hurt worse than booze. I walked to the podium for my brief thank you. My voice held. Years of incident command made sure of it. "This scholarship means a lot," I said. Ruth believed in service, not speeches. So, thank you. I stepped down to another round of polite clapping that felt like pity dressed in sequins. Chase was already shaking hands with the treasurer, a glass of champagne in the other hand. Lily smiled too wide, eyes glossy. "Dad," she said when I caught her in the hallway, away from the crowd, "please sign it. Just stop being stubborn. He's trying to help you." "Help me?" I repeated, and the words came out quieter than I meant. Her mascara shimmered under the recessed lighting. "It's just a formality. You'd still have control." I looked at her, my daughter, who used to make fire helmets out of cereal boxes, who once stood beside me at Ruth's grave, promising to take care of Dad. And I realized this wasn't cruelty. It was capture. By shame, by image, by a man who knew how to wrap poison in PowerPoint slides. I wanted to tell her everything. The evidence, the police report, the truth, but I didn't, because part of me still wanted to believe she'd come home on her own. Instead, I nodded once, the way you do when the fire's already too far gone. "Take care of your speech, Lily. You did fine." Then I turned, walked back toward the ballroom. The photographer waved me over, lined me up beside the scholarship kids, all dressed in rented suits and borrowed pride. I smiled for the photo. The flash popped, clean and hollow. And then I walked out into the night air, and finally allowed myself one real breath. When you've spent a lifetime running incident command, you learn that control isn't shouting its direction, quiet direction. You don't rush the flames, you shape the airflow. Margot understood that instinctively. By Monday morning, her email had already gone out neutral, factual, surgical, subject line, for transparency, incident report attached. She copied the Summit Ridge Country Club board, the donor committee, and the Scholarship Foundation chair. No adjectives, no blame, just the body cam report number, the cafe timestamp, and the confirmation that the case was under investigation. It was truth delivered like oxygen, colorless, necessary. That afternoon, the board convened in a mahogany-paneled room that smelled of citrus polish and legacy. The treasurer, a man who'd spent 20 years perfecting the art of polite discomfort, read the email aloud. Chase sat 2 seats away, suit immaculate, cufflinks catching light. "This is a misunderstanding," he said, his voice too loud for the room. "The report is incomplete. It'll all be cleared up once." The board chair, a retired judge, didn't let him finish. "Pending resolution, we'll suspend your committee privileges. Optics, you understand." You could feel the room contract. Handshakes got shorter, laughter thinner. By the time Chase reached for his glass of water, no one was meeting his eyes. Outside, I sat in my truck, engine off, watching the reflection of that same boardroom through the tinted windows. I didn't smile, didn't feel triumphant, just steady. Like the moment after a fire finally collapses into embers, you respect what burned, but you don't mourn the smoke. On my phone, a message blinked into the veterans group chat. "Be advised, Chase Dunn Financial approached us for partnership." Declined. Another followed. "Appreciate the heads up, Captain. We'll stick with our existing channels." The network didn't roar. It hummed. Contracts evaporated, quietly. One vendor emailed, "We'll keep our Hail Safety account with you, Walt, always." That always carried more weight than any check. At the same time, the local HOA Facebook page lit up. "Anyone else approached about signing something for refinancing?" Sounds fishy. Dozens of comments followed. Neighbors sharing, warning, screenshotting. No torches, no drama, just doors closing one by one. Bank of America's fraud alert arrived that evening and attempted login from a flagged IP, blocked automatically. I stared at the notification for a long moment, then filed it away. The system worked because I'd built it like a firebreak, layer by layer, with redundancies and watchmen. Meanwhile, Margot texted. 2 of his clients just withdrew. You didn't need to say a word. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I went out to the workshop behind the house, the same place Ruth and I used to refinish old chairs on weekends. The air smelled like sawdust and cold metal. On the pegboard hung my old turnout coat, its reflective stripes still faintly visible. I traced a finger over the faded patch that read Captain W. Hargrove. Fire Prevention Week had been my favorite, teaching kids to stop, drop, and roll. Simple, clear, effective. Tonight, I realized I was doing the same thing, stopping the spin, dropping the noise, rolling the truth where it needed to go. No speeches, no viral moment, just gravity doing its work. By the time Chase realized the handshakes were cooler and the smiles thinner, the room he'd counted on had quietly moved 2 steps away. I guess 99% of you will hear this, sigh, and scroll past, not clicking like or subscribe, even if it only takes a second. What time is it for you? And where are you listening? You can tell when someone's been crying long before you see the tears. The posture gives it away, the tight shoulders, the stiff neck, the way the hands won't stop moving. That's how Lily looked when she walked into my warehouse office. Pale, furious, scared. The hum of the fluorescence filled the silence between us. Outside, a forklift beeped as it reversed, steady as a metronome. She didn't wait for me to speak. "You're destroying us," she said. Her voice cracked halfway through us. I gestured toward the chair across from me. "Sit." She didn't. "Do you even know what you've done? They're freezing Chase's accounts. His clients are backing out. Our rent just went up. My insurance got flagged because of the investigation. You need to fix this." I opened the drawer, pulled out a tea bag, dropped it into a chipped mug. The kettle hissed in the background, a small domestic sound in a room made for grit and work. "No, Lily," I said quietly. "I don't need to fix it." She slammed her palm against the desk. "Just sign the damn power of attorney and they'll stop." The cup rattled, but my hands didn't. I poured the hot water, watched the steam rise between us. "No, honey," I said softly. "That's when they'll start." She blinked, disbelieving, like the sentence didn't compute. Her lips trembled. "He loves me." The nest chime sounded from the loading dock, someone dropping off an order. She flinched at the sound, shoulders jerking like a spooked animal. I set the mug in front of her, the tea still swirling. "Then he can love the truth in public," I said. For a long time she didn't move, just stared at the cup, eyes rimmed red. "Do you think I wanted this?" she whispered finally. "Do you think I like people whispering that my husband tried to?" She stopped herself, the rest of the sentence dying before it left her mouth. I think, I said slowly, you wanted peace more than you wanted truth. I understand that, but peace without truth doesn't last. I reached into the drawer again, pulled out 2 printed sheets bullet points, black ink on white paper. These are my boundaries, not threats, boundaries. She took them reluctantly. Read the first few lines aloud, voice flat. Separate finances, counseling, written apology to the board for misstatements. No use of my name or reputation in any professional capacity. Tears hit the page one by one, dark circles spreading like spilled ink. You'd really make me choose? She asked. I leaned back, folded my arms. No, I'm giving you a choice. There's a difference. The forklift beeped again outside. A door clanged shut. Somewhere, a radio played faint country music, too faint to make out the words. I watched her fold the papers, slowly, carefully, as if creasing them less might soften what they meant. She slipped them into her purse, her fingers trembling. I don't know if I can do this, she said finally. You don't have to know today, I said. You just have to start being honest. She looked at me for a long time, eyes glistening with a mix of hurt and defiance. Then she turned and walked out. The glass door swung once, twice, then settled. When it shut, I caught the faint reflection of myself in it, older, steadier, lonelier than I wanted to admit. I reached for my keychain, thumb brushing over Ruth's ring, still cool to the touch. I could almost see her raised eyebrow, the one that used to mean, hold steady, sailor. When the door shut and the forklift beep faded, I knew the next voice I needed to hear would be Lily's on a stage, not in a hallway. Paper doesn't shout, it waits, and when it moves, it leaves marks deeper than people expect. By the time I got to Midtown, the clouds over 6th Avenue were the color of copier toner. Margot's office sat high enough above the noise to make sirens sound polite. Glass walls, pale wood table, the faint smell of citrus cleaner. You could see the reflection of the city in every surface, sharp, layered, unsentimental. She slid a folder toward me. Subpoenas are ready, she said, tapping her pen. We'll start with the cafe's thermal printer log, Tommy's shift schedule, the notary's calendar, and Chase's sign now text chain. I leaned back in my chair. You make it sound like a grocery list. It is, she said. We're just shopping for truth. Oh, her eyes flicked up from the screen. You good? I shrugged. Been worse. Kitchen fires, stairwells. That earned half a smile. We'll also request Bank of America's POA flag reports and confirmation of your fraud alerts. It'll round out the chain of custody. Chain of custody. Words that used to mean evidence bags and charred stair rails now applied to coffee cups and text threads. Life has a sense of humor. She turned her MacBook toward me, cursor hovering over a digital signature line. I uncapped my old Mont Blanc Ruth's gift from when the shop first turned a profit. The nib scratched softly, steady. The ink looked calmer than I felt. Good, Margot said, closing the laptop. Detective Reyes will update you once the notary's statement comes in. And Walt? Yeah? Keep staying quiet. Silence is making them sloppy. At the precinct, Reyes met me with a manila folder thick enough to suggest movement. Preliminary review, she said, voice clipped. I didn't peek. I didn't need to. She nodded once professional respect, and I left it at that. Next stop, Cafe Alder's back office. The hum of refrigeration units filled the narrow space. Tommy sat across from a detective, pen trembling slightly as he signed his witness statement. Guess that criminal justice minor finally paid off, he joked weakly. I clapped a hand on his shoulder. You did right, kid, he smiled, small but real. By afternoon, I was on the phone with a fraud officer at Bank of America. Her voice was efficient, sympathetic in the way only someone who's seen every type of family betrayal can be. Yes, Captain Hargrove, she said. We can confirm multiple POA access attempts over the weekend, blocked automatically. We'll send documentation via secure link. Thank you, I said. Keep it in the record. At home that night, I made myself a sandwich I didn't finish and scanned everything statements, logs, timestamps into my iPad. The Nest Cam clicked softly on the porch as moths battered themselves against the light. The quiet was thick enough to hear paper edges shift when I turned a page. A memory surfaced out of nowhere. Ruth in our first house, paint under her nails, the fridge covered with lists. Call plumber. Replace smoke detector. Keep receipts. She believed paper was proof. Now it was gospel. The ping of an incoming email broke the silence. Margot again. One forwarded message, subject line, "You'll love this." It was a screenshot from Chase's group chat, him bragging about the meeting. "Espresso yourself into compliance," he'd written, time-stamped exactly 1 hour before the cafe incident. Paper waits. But when it speaks, it doesn't whisper. With the subpoenas served and the text preserved, I set my alarm for dawn, because the next fight would be fought under fluorescent lights and bylaws. The club lobby smelled like lilies and chlorine, the scent of money trying to smell clean. On the brass easel by the entrance, a cream cardstock notice caught the morning light. Special General Meeting Member Conduct and Donor Transparency, printed in gold serif font, the kind that pretends to whisper rather than announce. I stood there long enough to watch a couple of board members pretend not to look at me as they walked past. The reflection in the glass door showed my own face, older, harder, but calm. Years of standing in firehouse smoke had burned away the need to flinch. Chase arrived 20 minutes later, all tan confidence and dry clean charm. His blazer looked fresh out of a GQ shoot, his smile practiced down to the millimeter. "You can't win at my club, Walt," he said, voice low enough to sound intimate, loud enough for others to overhear. I stirred a coffee I wasn't planning to drink. "It isn't your club." He leaned closer, teeth white, eyes sharp. "People like a story. I'll give them one. Doddering dad, grateful son-in-law. They'll eat it up." I checked my Omega, the second hand steady as a heartbeat. "Stories need facts," I said quietly. "Make sure yours has some." He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. Margot had warned me this was coming. "They'll dress it up as governance," she'd said. "But it's theater. Keep your lines short. Let the exhibits talk." That afternoon in my shop, I followed her advice. The place smelled faintly of rubber gloves and metal polish. I cleared a section of my work table and started laying out the documents under Paperweight's old brass hose nozzles from my engine days. Exhibit A through F, each labeled in neat block letters on blue painter's tape. Ruth would have approved. She was always the organized one. The printer hummed, its warm plastic smell mixing with the sharp tang of toner. I watched the paper feed out police report number, body cam citation, bank alert confirmation, club ethics bylaw. 1 page, bullet points, no adjectives. Margot's mantra. Emotion loses cases. Paper wins them. As I stacked the pages, I caught sight of Ruth's photo on the shelf, her smile caught mid-laugh, the kind that pulled at her eyes. I set it beside the exhibits, not as evidence, just as witness. Around 8, I called Tommy. He sounded nervous, younger than he had during the witness statement. "You sure about me talking to anyone if they ask?" "Only facts, kid," I said. "Dates, times, what you saw. Nothing more, nothing less." He exhaled through the phone. "Got it. Facts only." When I hung up, the shop was quiet except for the faint ticking of the wall clock and the low hum of the security camera in the corner. Outside, the air smelled like rain that hadn't committed yet. I double-checked every exhibit tab, smoothing the blue tape flat with my thumb until there were no bubbles. The whole process felt ritualistic, like cleaning tools after a long call. Methodical, necessary. No speeches this time, no pleas. Just order. When the printer cooled and the last tab stuck clean, I put on the navy suit Ruth liked, the one that still held a trace of her perfume on the collar, and packed the exhibits into a leather folio. Then I locked the shop, turned off the lights, and drove toward the room where silence weighs more than applause. Every club has that one room, the one that looks elegant, until you realize how much power it hides. At Summit Ridge, it was the banquet hall. White tablecloths, a chandelier that flickered once every 15 seconds, just enough to remind you perfection's always rented. I'd stood under that light dozens of times before for scholarships, fundraisers, Ruth's memorial, but this time every face in the room turned when I entered. The chairwoman, Eleanor Riggs, tapped her gavel twice. Special general meeting, March agenda. 3 minutes per speaker. No personal attacks. Evidence only. Her voice carried the calm of someone who'd refereed too many arguments between people who paid too much for their opinions. Chase was already near the podium, posture polished, smile calibrated. He adjusted the mic as if it were a prop. "We love Walt," he began, his tone dripping with practiced concern. He's a hero, but he's also tired. Since Ruth's passing, the administrative side of things has gotten overwhelming. A sympathetic sigh rippled through a few tables. He leaned in. We sought a simple power of attorney to help manage accounts and keep the family safe. The coffee incident at Cafe Alder was a misunderstanding, exaggerated by well people with agendas. He looked directly at me, expression saintly. I forgive him for calling the cops. Forgive. The word landed like ash. The chair tilted her head. Mr. Dunn, do you have evidence supporting your statement? Chase nodded, shuffling a handful of glossy printouts, screenshots of emails, half-truths edited to look like context. Here, he said smoothly. Notes from my planner, communication logs, a few texts taken out of context by, well, you'll see. Eleanor took them without comment, her reading glasses glinting under the flickering light. Thank you, Mr. Dunn. She placed the prints face down and reached for the next folder mine. Captain Hargrove, would you like to speak? I shook my head once. Paper will do fine. She opened the packet, flipped past the cover page, and began to read aloud in the same steady tone she'd used for the bylaws earlier. Incident Report 2417. B Bodycam Index References at 8:36. Cafe CCTV log chain preserved by management. Bank of America security notification confirming attempted POA access on March 10th. Attached copy of subpoena notice to the notary and preliminary witness statement from cafe employee Thomas Kearns. The room changed temperature. You could feel it. The polite hum turned into a rustle of fabric, the sound of people suddenly remembering they had questions. Chase's jaw tightened. None of that's been verified, he said too quickly. Eleanor didn't look up. It's stamped and logged, Mr. Dunn. Verification pending completion of the open investigation. Someone near the back coughed. Someone else whispered. He said coffee mishap. I stayed seated, hands folded. You don't shout when the fire starts moving the way you want it to. Eleanor turned another page. Mr. Kearns has requested to speak briefly to confirm his statement. The door near the kitchen opened. Tommy stepped in wearing a borrowed navy suit that didn't quite fit, hair combed too flat, tie slightly crooked. His palms were slick against the microphone when he adjusted it. For a second, he just stood there breathing hard, eyes scanning the crowd of country club donors and dinner jackets. Then he found me near the back. I gave him a small nod, steady, like we used to do before a hose line push. When Tommy cleared his throat and looked straight at the microphone like it was a person, the room leaned forward with him. Tommy's voice shook at first, the kind of tremor that comes from being the only person in the room who doesn't own a golf shirt with the club logo. He adjusted the microphone once, twice, then tried to start. He stopped, glanced at Eleanor, the chairwoman. She gave him a small nod. Just speak plain, Mr. Kearns. He swallowed hard. Mr. Hargrove's son-in-law, he nudged a cup toward him and said it would help him sign. I wiped the table, switched them, by accident, I guess, and he drank his own. Then he got sick. I didn't know what was in it, but that's what happened. The room was silent except for the faint buzz of the ceiling lights. Tommy's hand went to his collar. I'm sorry, Eleanor interrupted, calm but firm. You followed health code and did your duty as a witness. Thank you. He nodded, relief and fear mixing on his face, and stepped back. The chandelier above him flickered once, like it knew the script. Detective Reyes took the mic, next short haircut, plain gray blazer, the kind of woman who didn't fill silences unless she meant to. We are not here to discuss criminal charges, she said. We're confirming a reported incident, preserved evidence, and forensic continuity. She turned toward the easel beside her. A large foam board rested on it, covered by a sheet of paper. When she pulled it away, the air in the room shifted. Printed in bold, sans serif letters was a screenshot time-stamped, authenticated. Espresso yourself into compliance. Underneath, the metadata. Date, time, sender, Chase Dunn. The sound that came next wasn't quite a gasp, not quite a sigh. More like a tire slowly losing air. Someone near the back murmured, "Oh my God." Reyes kept her voice even. This message was obtained from the subject's phone, preserved by warrant, and verified through carrier data. It was sent 1 hour prior to the incident. She closed her folder. That concludes my summary. No dramatics, just process. And it was worse that way. I didn't look at Chase. I didn't need to. The air around him was already changing, people leaning back in their chairs, heads tilting away, whispers rising like wind through reeds. His jaw tightened, then loosened. Instead, I looked at Lily. She had her hand over her mouth, eyes locked on the easel. Then, slowly, she dropped her hand. Her skin had gone pale, and for a moment she looked 12 again, like the day she fell off her bike in front of our old house, and I told her, "Look where you want to go, kid. Not at the ground." Now she was looking at me. The chandelier flickered again, and for a split second, the room looked like one of those black and white photos you see in old firehouse halls, faces frozen between duty and shame. Chase finally found his voice. "That's a joke," he said. "A bad one. People joke. You all know," but the words didn't go anywhere. They fell flat, tripping over the truth already standing on the board beside him. From somewhere near the donor table, a woman whispered, "He sent that before it happened." Another voice answered, "Says so right there." Eleanor cleared her throat. "We'll take motions." Her gavel hit once, sharp as a match strike. The room was still, everyone waiting for someone else to speak first. As the easel creaked and the text sat there like a dare, Lily stood up, and the scrape of her chair was louder than the chandelier's flicker had ever been. The chandelier steadied its flicker, almost like it was holding its breath. Lily stood there, both hands gripping the edge of the lectern, the microphone catching the uneven rhythm of her breathing. You could hear the air conditioner hum, the faint clink of someone setting down a wine glass. When she spoke, her voice cracked once, then leveled. "I said my father needed help," she began. "That wasn't true." The room quieted. No coughs, no shifting chairs, just that single sentence landing and sinking. She swallowed, the mic picking up the sound. "I needed help. I was embarrassed by being ordinary, by not being as sharp or as shiny as everyone else in this room. And Chase," she paused, glancing toward him. "Chase sold me a shortcut. I believed him." Across the aisle, Chase leaned back, arms crossed, his jaw working like he was chewing a secret. Lily took another breath, small and shaky but deliberate. "Dad, I used your name like a key. I thought if I borrowed your reputation, your service, people would respect us faster." Her voice trembled, then steadied again. "I'm sorry." The words didn't come toward me, they rose into the air, toward the room, the board members, the donors, the neighbors who'd once brought casseroles after Ruth died. She was setting the record right where the lie had lived. Then she turned back to Chase. Her tone softened, not with mercy, but with understanding that cost something. "Chase, you told me love meant signing, that if I loved you, I'd trust you. But love doesn't mean obedience. Love means stopping when you're about to cross a line that hurts someone." He let out a small, humorless laugh. "You'll regret this," he muttered. She looked at him, head tilted slightly, voice barely above a whisper. "I already do." The line hit like a slow exhale. No drama, no explosion, just finality. I felt my knuckles ache, the kind of deep ache that comes from old burns and older habits. My hand brushed the ring of the folder in front of me, grounding myself. The image that came to mind wasn't from that night, or even this decade. It was Ruth in our old kitchen, holding up a chipped dinner plate I'd told her to throw away. "It's ours," she'd said. "It's honest." Lily's voice sounded like that plate, cracked, flawed, but still strong enough to hold what mattered. Eleanor, the chair, cleared her throat softly. "Thank you, Miss Dunn." Then turning to the room, "We'll move to motions." Paper rustled. Hands rose. The process was old, procedural, impersonal, and somehow sacred. "Motion to suspend member Chase Dunn pending review." "Aye," came a wave of low responses. "Motion to refer to the Ethics Committee for further investigation." "Aye." "Motion to approve the annual Ruth Hargrove Memorial Scholarship Fund." "Oh?" That one wasn't unanimous, it was unanimous and heartfelt. The kind of yes that fills the air. Chase sat still, jaw tight, eyes locked somewhere past the chandelier. Lily returned to her seat slowly, not looking at me until the very end. When she did, it wasn't a plea, it was a promise. Eleanor set down her gavel. "This meeting is adjourned." When the vote cards lifted and the room murmured, "Aye." Chase's face didn't fall, it hardened, which told me we weren't done. It arrived at 9/7 a.m. A courier in mirrored sunglasses, holding an envelope too thick to be polite. The logo on the flap was embossed in navy blue, the kind of paper that smells like money and ego. I already knew what it was before I slid it open with my pocket knife. Inside, 3 pages of legal choreography, printed on watermarked stock. The phrases were predictable, almost comforting in their familiarity. False and malicious statements. Tortious interference with economic advantage. Cease and desist. Chase must have thought tone could substitute for truth. I took a photo and texted it to Margot with a single line. "It's here," she called within 10 minutes. "Standard bark," she said, voice flat. "Hold, please." I heard the sound of typing, the muted clack of a woman who'd made a career out of dismantling male entitlement letter by letter. Then she read aloud, almost like a lullaby. "Your client's statements conflict with preserved texts, surveillance records, witness accounts, and financial security alerts. Kindly advise him to refrain from contacting Mr. Hargrove or his daughter. All further communication should be directed to counsel." I could hear her smile through the phone when she added, "We'll file this under predictable tantrum." I exhaled, the kind of slow breath that tastes like metal. After we hung up, I ran my thumb over Chase's lawyer's signature, the ink ridge catching against the skin like scar tissue. I'd seen that same brand of confidence before, usually on people who thought the rules were fireproof until they weren't. Outside, a leaf blower droned somewhere down the block, steady and indifferent. It reminded me of bunker gear noise, the low mechanical hum that always meant someone was keeping the danger out. Protection has a sound if you listen close enough. By noon, the ripple had already started. The HOA Facebook page posted a PSA in its usual cheerful tone. Friendly reminder to vet financial opportunities and verify licenses before signing documents. The comment thread grew fangs within the hour. Someone posted the subpoena link. Someone else added a screenshot of Chase's old marketing slogan, "Trust starts here." The irony practically carried itself. That afternoon, Bank of America's fraud division confirmed what we already knew: attempted POA access had been blocked twice in the past week. They sent a courtesy notice with a reference number. Margot screenshot it, added it to our receipts folder, and labeled it Exhibit 11, Persistence versus Logic. By evening, my phone buzzed with one more message, this one from a local contractor. "Hey, Walt, saw the posts. Just so you know, we're out if Chase's firm is in on anything. No drama, just loyalty." I typed back, "Appreciate it. Keep your head down." He replied with a thumbs-up emoji. That's the thing about small ecosystems. They don't roar. They just quietly reroute the current. The legal letters sat on my kitchen table, aligned at the corners, unread now. I poured a cup of Pike Place, still warm from the pot, and took it out to the porch. The morning chill had turned sharp, but for the first time in months, the coffee actually tasted like coffee. Sometimes revenge doesn't look like headlines. It looks like paperwork properly filed, calls properly logged, noise properly contained. With the letters filed and the noise routed to counsel, all that was left was the cost and who was willing to pay it. The kitchen felt smaller than it used to. Maybe it was the way the afternoon light cut across the table, sharp and golden, like it was dissecting everything that still needed saying. Lily sat across from me, her fingers twisting a paper napkin into something that looked like a flower and a wound at the same time. "What would it take?" she asked finally. Her voice wasn't defensive anymore, just tired. Like she already knew there wasn't going to be an easy version of the answer. I slid a single sheet of paper across the table, my handwriting blocky and steady like I used for firehouse rosters. "No spectacle," I said. "Just work." She read it in silence. "Therapy receipts," she said after a moment, eyebrows knitting. "Not mine," I said. "Yours." Her eyes dropped to the next line. "Separate finances." She nodded once. "That's fair." Then the next. "Written retraction to the club board." She swallowed. "I already said I was sorry." "Apologies are feelings," I said. "Retractions are records." She didn't argue, just kept reading. "Community service hours, real hours," she murmured. "And a statement?" I nodded. "To the kids." "The scholarship group. Tell them what you learned about shortcuts, about what happens when you confuse love with leverage." Her jaw clenched. "That's humiliating." I stirred my tea, watching the steam curl and fade. "Humility isn't humiliation," I said. "One fixes you, the other breaks you." For a long moment she didn't move. The clock ticked in the corner. Then, like a small engine catching after a long winter, she said, "Can I read it instead of speaking it?" "No," I said quietly. "You have to say it out loud." She looked at me, and for a moment I saw the kid who used to practice speeches in front of the bathroom mirror with Ruth's hairbrush as a mic. She didn't want to do it then either, but she always did. Her phone buzzed on the table. A notification from her bank app. She opened it, exhaled. I just opened a new checking account. A small step, but it sounded like the start of repair. She typed another message, this one to the club chair. "Drafting retraction letter," she said under her breath. Subject line, clarification and apology. "Good," I said. Then she opened her iPhone calendar. I watched her thumb hesitate before typing. Therapy, Wednesday, 3 p.m. She hit add, and the alert tone pinged once, bright and final. For a while, neither of us spoke. The kettle ticked as it cooled on the stove, that soft metallic rhythm I'd heard 1,000 times before. It reminded me of nights after bad calls at the station, the young rookies sitting with coffee cups they couldn't quite hold steady, saying, "I messed up, Cap," and me saying, "Then fix it right, once." Thoroughly. I thought about how every one of them grew up after that one bad call. When Lily's phone chimed again, I saw the new calendar title appear across the screen, "Say It Out Loud." She looked up at me, eyes clear for the first time in months. "I'll do it," she said. I nodded once. "Then we're good. Not forgiven, not reset. Just good, the kind you build, not the kind you declare." When her phone dimmed and the house settled into that soft, waiting quiet, I let myself believe this could end in something cleaner than anger. I guess 99% of you will hear this, sigh and scroll past, not clicking like or subscribe, even if it only takes a second. What time is it for you, and where are you listening? The VFW hall still smelled the same wood polish, chili powder, and faint cigarette ghosts from decades past. Folding tables lined with crockpots, cords taped down with care, and a fire boot filled with carnations sat beside a framed photo of Ruth. Someone had draped her old station jacket over the chair next to it. The patch was faded, but her name still caught the light. Lily stood near the back, paper in her hand, breathing like she was steadying herself before a climb. Veterans in blue jackets shuffled past me, offering nods that meant, "We see you, we know this one hurts." No speeches, no small talk, just the quiet solidarity of men who've stood too close to flames. The chair tapped the mic. Scholarship night, dedicated to Ruth Hargrove, beloved wife, mother, and member of this post. A pause. Lily Hargrove has something she'd like to say. My daughter walked to the front, heels clicking softly against the scuffed linoleum. The hum of the overhead lights filled the room as she unfolded her paper. "I used my father's name to open doors," she began. Her voice wavered once, then leveled. "I called control love. I confused speed with wisdom. Don't do what I did." The words were plain, almost too small for what they carried, but they filled the room anyway. Two kids in the front row, one with a scholarship badge pinned crooked on his jacket, wiped their eyes. Lily looked down at her page again. "Dad, I can't undo it," she said quietly. "I can only never repeat it." Applause came not thunderous, not performative, just warm, the kind that holds you up without crowding you. When it was my turn, I walked up slow. The mic caught the faint creak in my knees, and I let the pause linger. "Forgiveness," I said, "begins with paperwork and ends with behavior." A few people smiled, knowing the truth of it. "I'm open to both." From the back of the hall, a man in a suit whispered into his phone. Chase's lawyer, probably updating a client who'd already lost the room. No one looked his way. I took a folded cardstock sheet from my jacket pocket and set it on the lectern. "These 5 rules," I said, "are going on my fridge tonight. Maybe they'll help someone else before it's too late." I read them slow, one by one. 1. No signing at parties. 2. Legal documents reviewed in daylight. 3. No using names as leverage. 4. Separate finances, always. 5. If you need urgency, you need a second opinion. A murmur of approval moved through the room, practical wisdom disguised as small print. Afterward, people came by to shake hands, to pat shoulders, but the moment that mattered was quiet. Lily came up beside me, eyes red but steady. "Can I come by Sunday?" she asked. "Dinner," I said. "No money talk." She smiled, small but real. Deal. On our way out, I brushed my hand along the doorframe and felt the small nick in the wood where Ruth once bumped her trophy coming through. I'd never sanded it down. Small evidence of a life that held. That night, back home, I taped the cardstock to the fridge with blue painter's tape. The ink bled a little from the condensation, but the words stayed clear. As I locked up, I caught my reflection in the dark window, older, maybe softer, still standing. We walked into the cool night, my Omega ticking steady, and for the first time in a long time, the house key in my pocket felt exactly like what it was mine to guard, not to grip.